Hey guys, this is Richard with the Hunter-Gatherer Society, and I did another impromptu trip today. It's been a long time since I've posted, and I apologize for that. There's just been a lot of stuff going on, a lot of life stuff, and feeling more like myself again, and a lot of home time. And I did a video a while back about how sometimes you got to force yourself to go. So today I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out to the Everglades. I'll do a little fishing, at least drive around a little bit, flick a jig a couple times. And I thought as long as I'm going, I'm going to throw my stuff in my truck and just enough for a night and see what happens. So, you know, of course you get out here and it's peaceful and quiet and the weather's nice and you think, man, I want to stay longer. So I did bring my gear. I did end up setting up the hammock. So I went to camp, made sure it was, you know, wasn't underwater this time of year, and found a nice little spot and put the hammock up just kind of to mark it. So I've only got a couple hours till dark. I want to drive around, check out a couple of fishing spots. And one of the neat things about being out here in Florida, you know, I've talked about the fishing, is you just never know what you're going to get. I stopped by this little bridge here, and like other bridges, there's bass and sunfish and Oscars and Mayans. There's snook, there's gar. There's a wide variety of things that run through these canals. So you never know what you're going to get, but you also never know what you're going to find. Some of you may have noticed the tree behind me. This is a fun little find. I'll turn around so you can see it. So bear with me just a second. All right. So maybe you can tell by the leaves. Maybe not. You can probably tell by them. That is a papaya tree. Just a random wild papaya. Those little papayas are pretty small right now, but I don't know if they'll get very big. You know, the nights are getting cooler, and not sure exactly what their season is, but I know I've been getting papaya from some of the locals, and they've been pretty good size. So they can fruit all year down here, so we'll see. I might have to stop back here and maybe another week and see how big those have gotten. But beautiful little papaya tree sitting in there, and there's a little bit of overcast sky today. There's been a few sprinkles, not much. That's one of the reasons I hurried up and got the hammock set up. I don't have my big gear tonight. This is a hammock camp. Brought enough gear for probably one night. But beautiful, beautiful day. And see, there's a few sprinkles hitting the water right now. I did actually stop. When I first came off the highway, I stopped. There was a little bridge and the water was just kind of boiling with fish, so I got a jig out quick and I flicked it in there, and it was a school of bluegills. I didn't have my camera out, and it was just, I wasn't even planning on doing it. It was just kind of spontaneous, and I ended up catching probably 6 or 8 nice bluegills out of there, and I saw a lot of big Oscars, so that was a fun kind of start to the day. But I'm going to get on the road here and explore a couple of my normal fishing holes and see if I can't get into anything. Like I said, a little bit of time here before the sun starts to set and I get dinner ready, so get the fire going. I'll see you guys in a little bit if I find anything exciting. Well, here we are. Made it back to camp. Got a little bit of rain, settled the dust down just a hair. And but it was just kind of around camp, didn't go too far. I drove down and did a little bit of fishing. Interestingly enough, the fishing wasn't real great. I caught a few small ones, and I did manage to catch a couple for dinner. However, the fish that did bite seemed to be a little camera shy. Every time I didn't have the camera on, they would bite. If I had the camera on, it could be for a half hour, they wouldn't bite. So it's just starting to get dark, as you can see. I've got the fire already started, and got camp set up. I had, like I said, I had the hammock set up already. And before it gets too dark, I'll give you a quick tour of what we're doing tonight. It's pretty simplistic today. I did bring some creature comforts like my chair, and did get a new camp stove. So for those of you who watched the last video, you know that the camp was robbed while I was out fishing, and they took my cooler and my camp stove. Have not replaced the cooler yet. I have a foam one that I use, and that works just fine for me. And but the camp stove, especially with Hurricane Ian, I missed having that stove during the hurricane. You know, we made do, but it would have been a lot easier with the stove. So ironically, after the hurricane, I went ahead and replaced that. So let me give you a quick tour of the camp, and then I think I'm going to maybe dig around and see what I've got for dinner here. I know I've got a few potatoes and some fresh caught fish, so I'm sure we'll figure something out. And then I think I have a little treat for later on, so a little happy hour around the fire. Anyway, let me show you the camp. All right, guys, like I said, I'm keeping it simple tonight. I got my chair with me, enough firewood for the evening, and I've got my new cook stove. So this is the same stove I had before. This one, single burner with a flat cooking surface on it. The only difference with this one, bright red. Didn't want that, but you can't find these stoves, and so the one I did find was red, so I grabbed it while I could. These campsites have a nice little gear hook. I've got my lantern hanging there, and then of course we've got just the hammock tonight. So I had already survived the first rain, nice and dry, so that's good. That's a good sign. And I had the poles down for the rain so it didn't pool up. I've just got it up now. I'll put them back down before bed. Little mat on there for my shoes. And I brought my sleeping bag this evening, although it's supposed to be in the mid-70s, so I don't know. I won't need a whole lot tonight. It's going to be nice and warm tonight. So that'll keep me high and dry until morning. So nice campsite, very comfortable. Again, keeping it pretty simple. So I'm going to dig around and see what I've got for dinner, and then enjoy this evening. Man, it's an absolutely beautiful morning. I imagine it's probably around 72 degrees and no humidity. Beautiful sunny morning. Not a cloud in the sky. It's going to be hot today. I think it's going to be probably over 90 today. So got up pretty early this morning. It's probably only about 7:30. But I've already had breakfast and kind of picked up camp a little bit. I'm going to get going a little early this morning. Want to do a little bit more fishing before I head back to town. I have a date with a papaya tree that I've got to get some fresh papayas from. Maybe a few coconuts too, just for the week. I like having a few fresh ones around. Slept good last night. The only issue I had last night was it stayed really warm. So it was in the mid-70s, and I brought my heavier sleeping bag. And I kind of grabbed everything just quick as I went, or as I was, getting ready to go. I was just chucked a few things in the truck and headed out. Hindsight, I should have grabbed my thinner sleeping bag, but other than that, I did well. And really the only reason that was an issue, because I pretty much just slept on top of it all evening, was the fact that there were quite a few mosquitoes out last night. And not being in the sleeping bag, if I didn't have everything set up right, as soon as your skin touched that outside of that hammock, they found you. And it wasn't a real problem because I just adjusted the sleeping bag so that it was between me and the hammock. But again, hindsight would have brought the thinner one, and then I could have just crawled right in it. But it was too warm to crawl in that larger bag last night. Other than that, beautiful night. It was quiet here. There's only one other set of campers in camp. There's some tent campers down there. Look like a young family. They were silent last night. I didn't hear a peep out of them. They probably heard more out of me from, music during happy hour than I heard of them. So anyway, I'm going to finish this coffee, and then I think we're going to find a hole and see if we can't see if we can't find a few fish in it. I'd like to bring a few fish home for the week, but I want to do it before it gets too darn hot. So I'll finish my coffee and get this camp cleaned, or finish getting this camp cleaned up, and we'll get on the road. So I was sitting here just kind of getting things pulled together this morning, having my my cup of coffee, and I noticed something, and it kept just kind of nagging at me. Remember, as a forager, we're always looking, especially you got to look up. I don't know if you can see it from here, but there was something different in that tree that was really just nagging at me. I don't know if that'll zoom in enough, focus. I don't know if you could see that. There, right there. See it? There's something hanging from that tree. Some kind of a fruit. Well, like a child, I can't resist. The problem I have here is this is all wet. But I think if we stick close to these hardwood trees, oh yeah, we can get through here. Oh, this is citrus. Well, I'll be danged. Look at that. Now, it's not ripe yet. I know last year I had pretty good luck in December. There should just be starting to get ripe right now. And actually, up top, there is one that is just starting to get ripe. It's the only one I see. Oh, well, yeah, nope, there's another one right there. This one took a beating in the storm, though, but I do see... Definitely, mosquitoes are getting me. Sorry about the camera moves, the mosquitoes are after me. Definitely see citrus in that. Some good sized fruits. Not sure what they are, but definitely some good sized fruits. Won't know more until they ripen up. They're not Seville, they're not the right shape. I'm guessing they're probably just sour orange, but not sure. Huh. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Whether you're fishing or hunting, one of the things that a lot of people find very exciting is the discovery or the getting of a new species. And like in fishing, for example, people will do actual lists and they see how many different species they can get on that list. I'm not so much into that, although I do enjoy catching new species. But for me, usually if I'm fishing, you know, it's relaxing, it's enjoyment, but I'm also looking for something to eat. And but when you're foraging and you find a new species for the first time, it's always super exciting. The interesting thing about foraging is, as someone who spent most of his life hunting and not foraging, and now spends most of his life foraging, not hunting, I find foraging to be very similar. You spend a lot of time in the woods, you enjoy the outdoors, you find great things to eat, and then you still have the thrill of the hunt where, especially mushrooms, boy, you come around a tree and there's a huge chick in the woods or a bunch of morels. It's just fabulous. And today, I found it first. So I was driving along and something caught my eye. And so I stopped, and let me turn the camera around and I'll show you what we found. Okay, so I don't know how good you can see in that camera. But back in the woods, there's something that stands out there. And oftentimes in hunting, just like foraging, you know, you're looking for something that looks different. So I'm gonna get back in there and we're gonna take a look at these. This is absolutely an amazing find. I'm super excited. Never found these before in the wild. I've never had one, to be honest with you. Domesticated, definitely not wild. I'm back here in the woods, so I'm just being real careful. There's no doing a gator check, snake check. Everything looks good. Here we go. Look at these guys. They look like little pumpkins hanging on the trees. Now the trees are bare. There's no leaves on these. There's a few dead leaves. It looks to me like these got really beaten up by the recent hurricane winds. But look at this tree here. Quite a few left on it. There's quite a few left over there. And there's another tree over there with a bunch on it. So this is really cool. So these Let me get that one back in the lens. These are a common persimmon. That one's really mushy. I'm going to pick him. And that's the trick to these things. So it kind of looks like a little pumpkin. It's a little dark on the bottom. They got to be really mushy. So these things, those of you from the north think of choke cherries. From the south, think of like a Java plum. You know, you put that in your mouth, it's going to dry your mouth out instantly. And you have to catch them when they're real mushy, just as they're falling off the tree in order to eat them. Most common uses for these are jams, marmalades, and wines, and even beer. But they are edible, and they're very high in vitamin C. Kind of like a rose hip of the south. I mean, they kind of look like that a little bit. But this is an awesome find, guys. There must be a couple dozen persimmons on these different trees. And there's some on the ground. It looks like maybe the animals have been in here enjoying them. There's actually one that looks like it just recently fell right there. And and there's also, I noticed a couple, there's actually another tree back there with nothing on them, but that is a persimmon tree. And I think that that's a young persimmon tree. The bark looks very, very similar. I believe that this is also a young persimmon tree. So it looks like this little area right here has got quite a few in them. So this is a super cool find. I'm kind of out looking for a place to fish. And but I saw these and I thought, God, that looks really strange. So I pulled over and sure enough, here they are. I'm going to pick a couple of these just to bring them home. I want the seeds, truthfully, out of them. And then I'm going to get back on the road and find somewhere to fish. I'll see you guys in a bit. Check it out, guys. So these are super soft and squishy. That one's perfect. So interestingly enough, this one, perfect catch. Super sweet and good. Now I tried another one, and that one literally dried my mouth out, but it was real firm. So if you catch them when they're super mushy, just as they're dropping off the tree, they are wonderful, wonderful. They've got these great big seeds in them, and I want those seeds actually for my patio garden. I'll try to get those to grow. They will grow in a pot, but I'm telling you guys, this is an unbelievable, wonderful treat. Oh man, that is so good. Just like candy. Wow, that is amazing. Guys, I'm going to pick a few of these. I'm going to enjoy a couple of these. And then I'm going to get back out of there and, like I said, try to find something to fish. I just wanted to show you what they look like and share this first moment with you. Because, guys, I've never eaten a persimmon in my life. I've read about them. I've thought about growing them in pots. Haven't decided yet to find these in the wild. This, guys, is what foraging is all about. It's a lot of time in the woods. A lot of times you don't find much or find anything. You certainly don't find anything as sweet and delectable as this. But when you do, it's just one of the coolest experiences. So just remember what I always say. Get out there, do something wild. Anyway. Oh, I missed him. There is a big thing of lily pads right here. And I don't want to get into those lily pads or I probably won't get out. So, and they're hiding underneath them. I gotta get them and get them out from underneath there quick. That sun is coming up and it's getting hot fast. So I figure I'd get some fishing in right away this morning and try to get going before it gets too dang hot. See, now I'm right on the edge of those lily pads. If I get stuck in them, I'm gonna probably not getting out. But they're surfacing right there on them lily pads. He goes right through the lily pad. Oh, there we go. Goes right to the lily pads. They know where to go. Another nice Oscar. There's a nice one. Oscars. Oh, there's a beautiful one. I don't know if you guys can see the orange color on that guy. He is beautiful. Palm tree that keeps messing with me. Now, one thing about these Oscars is they are smart. So when they figure out something's going on, they'll move on. So we may be there already. I'm going to work the other side a little bit. Sometimes if you let it settle for a few minutes, like I went back to the truck and, oh, there's one. Got right to the damn lily pads. Ooh, this is a nice one. Oh, he's right in the path, dude. There we go. we go. There. Jeez. Like I said, I had to work the other side a little bit, but that guy's a beast. So my goal today is to catch enough to clean up a batch and then vacuum seal them and freeze some up so I have them for later. It's amazing to me how many fish are in these channels. You know, I'll come out here and I can't pull a keeper out, so it's always fishing even when there's invasives around. What we're catching today is invasive species. It's Oscars, and there are also Mayans in here, Mayan cichlids. Now I caught a lot of some big sunfish yesterday. However, I let all those go. Those are the native species here, so I try not to keep those. I keep the invasives, and truthfully, I think the Oscars taste better than the sunfish. So there's no real reason to keep them. They have enough pressure on them as it is with all these invasive species coming in. So I let them go and I keep the invasives. Nice thing about these Oscars is they feed very similar to a sunfish or a crappie. So I'm using little crappie jigs right now. No bait, just little yellow tails on them, and just kind of jigging them in. And they love them. And when they're feeding, they can be ferocious. I mean, they just go to town. They usually swim in schools, 3 or 4. So if you can find a group, you can usually catch or at least get a shot at a couple of them. That's what's happened here this morning. I've probably put a half a dozen of them in the truck. Now, the thing about them is that once that school has been worked over and they catch on and something's going on, then they're gone. The other thing I've noticed with them is if you find them by culverts, if they see you, they're not biting. So if they can see a person standing up there, you can throw anything you want at them, and unless they're really, ferociously feeding, they won't touch anything. So a lot of times on a culvert, what I do is I'll sneak up to them, I'll cast out in front of the culvert first, see if there's anything right up there, because they'll get up in just a few inches of water, and then I'll come, closer to the culvert and fish it. They do seem to be color sensitive. I've had them where they're only going to feed on white, or today they're really hot after yellow. And then I've had them other days when I think it's post-spawn or maybe pre-spawn, where they're just, it doesn't matter. You could probably put your finger in there and get a couple. So I think it's just like any fishing, right place, right time. Oh, I missed him. Came right out of them lily pads. I do notice a lot of times too, they hit it on the drop. So as you're bringing it in, make sure to let it just sit for a minute and let it drop. Wow, that dirty rat. I'm going to take my own eye out here. School of tiny minnows here. I think that's what they're feeding on. That's what the sunfish were feeding on yesterday. We're working this school of minnows. I have a feeling this group has been worked over now. They are done. There's a group on the other bank I see surfacing, but it'd be tough to reach them from here. And we're in gator country, so definitely no wading in for them. Let's see if there's anything over there. It's probably time to move on to a new spot. Tell you what though, I drove right by this spot and I happened to see a little bit of a walking trail cut down to the edge of the canal, and I saw the lily pads, and I've noticed, boy, anytime, I don't care if it's sunfish, crappies, bass, you get a patch of good thick lilies and they love that. Gives them a little bit of cover. They can sit underneath them, catch food as it goes by. There's a pretty good current running through this canal right now, so they can sit underneath those lily pads and it just brings food to them. So I'm trying to use that kind of to my advantage. The trick is I've got the palm tree right here, I've got trees right here, I've got the lily pads and some other weed beds here, and so you see me, you know, just about taking my eye out a couple times with the line, but I'm trying to get that hook out of there before I get in those lily pads. And if I get the fish, same thing, get him out before he gets in those pads. The trouble is, if they get in the lily pads and they get all tangled around them, I'm not going to get them out. Man, I put that one right on the weeds and the shore on the other side. I thought for sure something would grab onto that, but I don't see as much surface feeding here now. So I think I caught a little bit of a feed, and I think it's done now. So we're gonna move on. I like to give it about 15 minutes, and 15, 20 minutes. And if you don't get anything, move on. You've either spooked them or they've already left. I think they have left. So we got a nice batch of fish out of this spot. My rubber tail is pretty beat up, so I think it's time we're going to switch locations and regroup, find more fish. All right, I've just been driving along this road and I'm looking for lily pads, culverts, anything that'll hold fish. Found this nice culvert here. And that water is clear. I don't see any fish, but this is the outgoing side. Let's look at the incoming side. Actually, maybe we'll leave the incoming side alone. Looks like somebody else is using it for breakfast here. Yeah, we'll let him have that side of the culvert. And we'll just keep our search going. Oh yeah. There we go. So I just tried this new spot. There's like a little pond here and there's some current going out the other side. Right away I got into some sunfish, so I wasn't going to spend much time with it because I don't want to harass the sunfish. I usually leave them alone. However, I thought I hit into one nice Oscar and put him in the bucket already. And I apologize for the wavering camera, but you're leaned on a tree right now. So anyway, this is the second nice Oscar here, so I'm going to put him in the truck and then I'm going to keep working this a little more. All right, let's see if there's more in there. There's a lot of little sunfish in here. They're really aggressive. Again, I leave the sunfish because that's the native species. I'm only after the invasive species. Yes. Another Oscar. Holy jumper. Oh, another beautiful fish. Another beauty. Oh, geez, you hit that. That's just a little feller. Oh. I could feel by the way he bit that he got my tail. So I had switched over to a silver tail and didn't do real well on that. So I switched back to the original yellow, and that has continued to do well. So I don't know if it's just where I was or if it really is that color is making that huge difference. But I'll tell you what, as long as I have the yellow on, I seem to do really well. And I'm running out of those tails, of course. Never fails. They want to eat the one you have very few of. Well, that didn't work. And that's going to take me a minute to get undone. Well, that was actually either easier than I anticipated. It looked worse than it was. Something grabbed it on the run, and they must be close to the surface because I'm having the same problem. So let's keep close to the surface. Yep, that's what they're doing. Feeding on the top. I'm going to have to start setting the hook sideways, if that's the case. they've moved. They're on to me. They're on to my tricks. Good girl. Ah. I think those are the little ones just hitting it and running. There's one. There he is. Oh boy, he just inhaled that thing. Not as big, but still a keeper. Ooh, it's wet right there. Can't quite get back to where the current leaves this thing. But I'm sure they're sitting in front of it. About 83 degrees, warming up quickly this morning. Probably another hour before it gets hot enough to where I don't want to do it anymore. Plus I've got plenty of fish. I've probably got a good 8 or 9 of these in the bucket. I'd like to get a dozen. I'm going to stop and pick up some fresh papaya from a lady today off her tree. She messaged me, said they're ripe, and so I was thinking about bringing her a few fish. A little trade. I want to get some fresh coconut too. Or even if not a trade, I'll pay for the fruit and just give her some fish. Always good to give, especially when you have a bounty. And there's a huge gar swimming by. That could be some of those surface misses too. Could be gar. They're extremely, when you go to set the hook quick, it's almost impossible. You got to let them suck on it for a long time before you're going to hook them. So it's possible those are gar because I can't see them over there. I think this spot is done. I think it's time to move on. It served us well. Well guys, I had a little wildlife encounter here. Unfortunately, I didn't have the phone with me. I was just checking out this bridge and a raccoon came down and started running down the road. But I couldn't get the camera on in time. I did want to show you this though. I was just checking out this little spot here. It looks like there's a bunch of smaller, probably Mayans in here. And there's a bunch of gar in here. I don't want to mess with them too much. But yesterday I was here and I noticed him. I don't know if you can see that. There's a gar right by his head there. See it swimming? Just laying down there. There's some gar. You probably see them swimming. Bunch of small gar in here. There's another one there. There's a bunch of little minnows in here. That's what they're feeding on. Oh, there's a big Oscar right there. Problem is, in this clear water with all this bait fish, it's pretty tough to get them to bite. They look a lot like a bass, but it's actually an Oscar. Anyway, pretty cool. Alright guys, you're going to hear the fish jumping in the bucket there. I just put one in there. So what I've got is a little culvert right here. If I walk up to that, they're gone. There's a bunch of Oscars, there's a bunch of gar. And so what I'm going to try to do is cast into it and pull them out. They're actually Mayans. Tell by the different pattern, the stripes on them. Again, if I walk up to that, they're gone and they won't bite. So this is the only way to get them. I got to stay away from the concrete or it'll shred the line. Fish outlines right now, so I know they're still there. Now they're getting cautious. They looked at it. These are Mayan cichlid. The bird says, hey, you're taking my lunch. Yellow has been the color of the day, but we'll try this silver because that's kind of more like the fish I know they're feeding on. See if that works. Well guys, this has been a great trip. Not a lot of like heavy foraging, but yet I found persimmons, I found wild citrus, a papaya, and I found pennywort, and of course Biden's alb is all over. And there was some, which I thought was out of season, but there was some different, well, a couple different greens that I didn't expect to find that now I of course can't think of. Caught a lot of fish, so a lot of Oscars. This last batch has been Mayan cichlids. And but I've got a full box of fish and it's getting close to noon. I need to get home. I got to get everything unpacked. I've got to get the fish cleaned, get cleaned up. I have papayas to pick up. So I think it's time to call it and say it's been an awesome trip. I'm really glad you guys came along. I love coming out here and making these videos. I love doing this stuff, and I love the comments and feedback. you know, again, this is just about getting out and having fun. And I haven't been out in a while, and it was just another case. I had to force myself to get in the truck and get out here. And once I was here, it was like I didn't want to leave. So next weekend I work, but the next weekend after that, I've got a 4-day weekend. So I'm going to try to figure out somewhere fun to go, and hopefully you guys will come along with. So until then, I will, next time I see you, hopefully you're out doing something wild.